So to start with, we have the HA documentation. I see somebody put a couple links in there.
Yeah, that was me. So one of them is a link for RGWHA, which has a really great diagram and probably um, really nice description of a lot of the ways to set up an ingress service for RGW. The other link is NFSHA, which duplicates this to some degree. The service spec is similar, but it doesn't have a diagram. It has less of a description. And interestingly, it describes the monitor port config option where the RGW doc does not. So looking at these, I guess the proposal is, or the suggestion is, how do we want to maintain these moving forward? Should we have just a dedicated ingress doc? It'd be nice to have more complete documentation in one place.
Yeah. I think ideally we would have one because we might add it to more services as well later. But I do really like this diagram and everything, but it's like RGW specific. I wonder if we can make a generic version of that. Possible.
Well, it may be okay as just an example. I mean, using RGW as an example.
Oh, just
Because I
moving
do
there.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think conceptually it makes sense to, use RGW as a example service perhaps. But fundamentally, an ingress just, fronts a backend service. So really coming down to just that one property in the YAML that differs between services.
Yeah. That could be like an idea. I guess we could start with is just Well, I guess are we in agreement? We want a generic ingress section, so we don't have to worry about having copies of this for the place. I'd be in favor of it, and I think there's a chance we add this to other services in the future as well. I don't know how to keep having a section in every single one daemon that's like this. We probably want or we probably would have a section, but it's like a really small one, mostly just links to the main one. And we could reuse again. You remove this RGW diagram there, or things Mike was just talking about.
For the most part, I would probably just lift the RGW doc and then merge in the NFS stuff that adds to this.
I mean, for the lazy, you could just remove the RGW word from the diagram and then just link the diagram in two locations. Unless it's purely rendered, and if that case, we just change the text on the fly. But assuming it's like a PNG that's like saved in the source tree somewhere, that would be kind of a cheap and quick way to do it.
I think it's just an image. I don't know for sure. I'd have to check. I think it's an image. But again, even like what I was saying, we could still totally use that. Just say like this is an example of it with RGW. Because I guess the setup should be similar across the daemons. I think we could reuse it anyway, even if it is going to be RGW specific. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in favor of that. Yeah, just sort of was lifting most of the RGW one out, putting it somewhere that we say this is the ingress section, and then having the NFS, the RGW one sort of link there. Then if there is something specific to that one, we can put it in the daemons section, like the RGW one or the NFS one, but most of the information is probably common. I have to read through, I guess, the details of these, see if there's what stuff there is specific.
From what I could tell, the only thing that really is important is the backend service property. And that needs to just point at either an RGW service or an NFS service or some.
Is that also still just generic though? That could be in like the generic ingress section. We just have to say like make sure your backend service has right port set up or whatever?
I think it's referencing a different spec. So you'd have this Ingress spec, and then you'd have an RGW spec, and so it's actually
Okay.
referencing that RGW orchestrator service spec.
Yeah, so you have to change the RGW spec itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we probably want it in RGW section, the NFS section. At the same time, it also kind of makes sense having an Ingress section because it's like for every single time you do Ingress, you're still gonna have to do this for a different service. But
For a different service, yeah. So like by way of example, for RGW, what you would do is you would change the port to some, like say, 18080, and then you would set the ingress with a port of 8080. And similar with NFS, only 2049 for the port. So
but it's the same just outside what port you have to do.
yeah. So for NFS, you would set ingress on the 2049 port so the clients can mount using the well-known port. And then you'd set the NFS service with some other port somewhere else on the back end.
I'll write down sort of what we're talking about in the other pad.
But other than that, I think most of this is kind of generic to HA proxy and keep alive D. Just really
Yeah,
kind of that port change and which service are we talking about.
yeah. And the RGW one doesn't even have, or no, it does have this the backend service. So this is still Ingress right down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a really like long, detailed section that we can definitely use.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of information there. Yeah, so it should just be lifted out, and NFS one should link to it, and the RGB one should link to it, and then there's just a few things I guess we can have in there specifically for each daemon type, but it does look like a lot of it should be generic. All right. People agree with kind of what's in the other pad. We're going to sort of lift the RGW one out, make it its own Ingress section. Like mostly lifted out, probably a few details that aren't lifted out, but do that and just have like just very specific things in the for each daemon. We have this over the backend port, like what you have to set that to or whatever needs to be probably in the for specific daemon, but in general, most of it is probably just going to be this Ingress section we can reference over and over as we add Ingress to different services. Take silence as people are okay with that.
No, yes, no objections. I don't know if the thing cut off. I'm like, now it sounds like I'm saying no. Yes.
All right, cool.
Is that something our team should do, or should we ask maybe Doc Writer, something like maybe Zach?
We could see if we could get a doc writer to do it.
Yeah. I mean, if not, I'm willing to do it. I just, developers writing documentation can be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if like it's mostly Zach, right, who's doing the doc stuff.
I think so.
I don't know if we can, if he has the understanding of HA to know which things go in which section, or if he has time to do that. But we could ask, I guess, and then.
Okay. If
See
not,
what
I
he
can
can.
take a stab at it too. So,
All right, I'll see if I can message. I'm not sure who's on IRC. I can see about that. Get his opinion at least. All right, that was good. Sounds like a plan. Does anyone have anything else you want to say on that topic? Are we sort of in agreement on where we're going to go with that? No. If not, I actually want to skip the second and third topic for now to go to the last one on here because it's more important right now, which is that next week, it's the same time, so it's April 12th, but at 11 we have our, I believe, I need to find where the schedule of this is, but I believe our like our planning is supposed to be done. Let me actually go real quick and find DLT meeting. I think they have the schedule somewhere. I can post it in RPad or link to it in RPad. Yep. That was a link to the reef pad. So we don't have to put anything in that pad, that's just the schedule. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because we probably want to have a couple things planned, what we want to talk about in there. One of the obvious sort of ones are we want to have some stuff about the agent in there and trying to get that stabilized over the course of, or for R, I guess. Right now it's still sort of untested and everything. But I want to sort of open up, begin with, if anyone has any things they think for sure, like we definitely want to try to do this in R, or we sort of start coming up with, yes, secondary ideas. So the things I had, like the big topic that I wanted to sort of work on was like transparency with like the serve loop and everything. So we have all these times where like something will get like stuck or will be hanging and you won't know what the serve loop is doing necessarily, which can make it hard for people to do any debugging or sort of know what's going on. So one of the things I want to do is find some way to have serve loop transparency. It's sort of a more general topic than like a specific thing we'd be adding, but I think it's one of the more important things that we do there. Also, maybe just in general, like a way to more easily find the like errors that happen with the daemons and the services and things. So I know we have our events and all that, but I find sometimes people don't even know where to look for those because we don't raise a health warning or anything. Sometimes it'll just be a failure attached to like a service. You won't see it unless you specifically go look for it, and so people won't find that stuff. Um, that was one thing. Else?
Just as an idea, do we have some tool like based on CFADM to check the health of the cluster, or for these cases we normally just use the dashboard?
If you just want the generic health, I mean, when you're in like the shell, you just do like a ceph-s. Like it'll tell you the health, and you can do a ceph health detail. Like it's just like normal command line stuff. I think that part works fine. I think the problem thing I'm talking about before was that sometimes some things will go wrong. We won't actually raise any health warning. We'll just if it's gonna happen, and we'll log it as like an event, sort of. But then you have to go look for the event, and people don't know where to look for.
So we already have support for that.
Right. Yeah, you can see the health of the cluster. It's just that sometimes we don't put anything in the health of the cluster. It just says everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
What else could be useful? Yeah, I think upgrade history. We already have a tracker for this. But that was another thing I wanted to get in. That's another thing that'd be nice to have transparency on. Is right now the upgrade ends. The upgrade state just says that it's not in progress anymore. It gets cleared, and so can't know for sure exactly what happened there. Something like an upgrade history would be probably pretty nice.
It could be good feature, especially if there are some bugs that only happen in some upgrade path. It could shed more light in these scenarios.
Yeah, especially with the staggered upgrade about to be a thing soon. It can be more useful to have something like that. 'Cause you can see like, oh, is this exactly what they tried to do when they upgraded?
Mhm.
That's the one that failed, and this is the one that worked, or whatever. Could help. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to bring it up that we do have the planning next week, and so there are some topics just put down that they want there. But if people have some time, maybe to think about, what thing could be useful to add in, that I'll probably maybe add some things to the doc here as I come up with stuff as well over the course of the week. But this is supposed to be like the big sort of R planning thing. One other thing we should actually bring up is we still never finished the compiling the binary thing to get the package, the Ceph package.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should definitely add that refactoring.
Yeah, so I don't know what the plan is with that right now, because I know we wanted to get it sort of in Quincy, but then obviously we couldn't finish it in time, but we don't want to put it in a minor release really either, so.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's better suited for R, because I think there's a good chance we're going to go through and refactor the entire binary script, that 5,000 line code thing, and yeah, so seems like a big code change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so out of curiosity, are people more looking at things that are features, or because this is like a code cleanup, code reliability? It's not as unimportant, but what are you advertising more?
I think because it's such a lot of work to refactor this, because we have to like split it up, because so I don't know exactly how the details of how it works, but essentially there's this pull request that's been open for a while that like compiles the binary. So I think you can like split it up and then compile it into one sort of thing.
Yeah.
And now we have to push whatever that compiles into somewhere so people can pull it off
Yep.
and like download Ceph.com. I forget where they're pushing it. There's actually a lot of work that has to go into making that happen, and then once that's possible, then we can actually refactor and split into different files and all that.
Yeah.
So while it is just a refactor, I think it's a big enough refactor that.
Yep. Reasonable.
Yeah, the basic idea is it's a Python zip executable, so you're kind of using that like a pip.
Yeah. I've looked at it. I think you were working on it directly, Mike, a month ago or so. So I do remember it, but I wasn't sure what kind of things they want to hear at this R. So yeah, if it's just like anything that's a big effort, this seems definitely reasonable.
Yeah, I think that could be good.
One other minor idea is we're kind of abusing the config store and the config keys. I think some of those are kind of difficult to find occasionally. Like for example, when I want to set the global container image, I have to do this config manager global container image thingy, and the CLI is awkward. So maybe do we want to improve the CLI to have because I know like the dashboard has its own subcommand there for setting keys specific to the dashboard. Do we want to formalize those a little better?
CLI commands for setting things like images.
For setting images, yeah. And specifically, I'm thinking like the monitoring stack. Sometimes I get.
You're mainly talking about changing the front end, right? You're not talking about changing where these are really stored, right?
No, just adding an additional subcommand to the CLI that makes it a little bit more formalized instead of an arbitrary config key thing.
Yeah, we could even actually extend that. We could even schedule a redeploy if they did that. Because right now you're doing 2 steps. You have to change the image, then we have to redeploy after. We could make one command where like you can change the image, then we'll schedule a redeploy for you.
And you could also add some validation for the inputs if it doesn't already have it.
Yeah, because right now, you just set it manually. You can get it to any string, pretty much. You just add garbage to your container name.
Yeah.
That would be a good one.
And then I think the only other real big idea that has been floated around for quite a while, but it's a task, is maybe like deal with air-gapped environments. Like, should we deploy a private container registry through the orchestrator and aid some of those type of things? So maybe place that on the admin nodes for those type of setups.
Yeah, personal opinion, I don't think we should be in the business of deploying a registry, but making air gap installs work well would be a definite plus one for me.
Yeah, we definitely check on it at least. Make sure that all the issues are worked out. At least make it easier to work with the private registry and everything.
Right.
Um, yeah, again, maybe we don't want to be deploying it ourselves, but at least we could make the process really easy. Like we have the registry already set up, then it's like super easy to have Ceph use it and all that.
Yeah, I mean, for test scripts or like if someone wants to write a blog, like here's how you run the Docker registry with a under Ceph with the generic container launching options. Great. I just don't think that should be like advertised heavily or like supported downstream because all those people are already going to have something else they probably use, whether it's Quay or a Docker registry or satellite or 8 million different options.
Yeah, and I don't have to worry about supporting deploying things like that.
Yeah.
The other tricky
There's
thing
another.
too is that there's a difference between Podman and Docker. You have to set like some specific config files on the host. I don't really want to delve into host management too much either.
Yeah,
So,
rather not. All right. Yeah, I think in general though it's a good thing to at least clean up our side.
Yeah. Maybe not now, but in the future, when we start with the refactoring, it would be good if, in order to add some new service, like to do it with configuration files, so we don't need to alter the code in order to add any new service, or at least like the code in different places and
Or like adding
committees, because
a service in the binary, all
in
the
in
different
the
buckets.
in the binary, like for example, the new services dashboard team had to add like 1 month ago. I don't remember the names. Some services related with Prometheus, and they was reviewing the PR. And honestly, it's very difficult to know that you are touching all the places where you have to add the new services, because we have like different places where you have to put the names or the arcs. So it would be good if we can have all this information centralized on some file, and in order to add a new service, to just add the service in some list and the file corresponding to that service.
Yeah, I think to do that, we need to work on breaking up
Yeah,
the ADM because right now, it's like I
yeah,
only look at my own single source file. Yeah, it's a good to do.
Yeah, I'll be interesting. So one thing with the Ceph refactoring is that after it happens, it's going to be extremely hard to make further changes and then backport them without backporting, cleaning up the binary like that. So we're probably going to have to do that like closer to the end or closer to when our releases, I'm imagining. So we don't have to, we're not going to backport it, so we don't have to backport other changes that we do in the binary that are
yeah,
on sort of that version. So
Hmm.
if there's something that's built on top of that, it'll probably be pretty late in R. Maybe it'd be something that comes in a minor release of R. Once we have sort of the big picture refactoring done.
yeah.
Um, I think it's a good starting list for things, and I'm sure other people maybe because I know people who aren't just us are going to show up to that meeting, and they may have their own ideas for things they want to do. Like I think someone's they might ask, or they'll probably be done earlier actually. We'll see if people want other things automated or if they want other stuff done in Ceph. And we'll have our list of own things that we want to do as well. So we'll be able to put a pretty good list together, I think. This is a good start. Yeah, just feel free to open the Etherpad and add to that list over the course of the week. And when we go to the actual meeting for the planning, it might have its own Etherpad. I don't know how it's going to work. But if it does, I can just copy paste this list over there as a starting point.
Sorry, maybe I missed it. What pad are you talking about? Oh, there it is.
The weekly. Oh, I can link the weekly pad. It should be attached as the meeting minutes or something in the calendar for this. But yeah, I should probably link it in case people don't have it open.
Yeah, I mean, I know the one about this meeting, but I think you were talking about. I see it now on line 46. Is that the one, the link you were talking about?
That's just the schedule. I was saying they might make an Etherpad when
Oh,
we do this, because I think there might end up being like a R planning Etherpad, or maybe there'll be an R planning Etherpad for each component specifically. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't remember how it worked last year. So it's possible it won't be in the same orchestration weekly pad. They're doing all this, they're writing all this stuff down. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll have to figure that out. But if they do, I'm saying we can just copy paste this list out of the weekly pad into there as a starting point.
understood. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, like I was saying, just feel free to go add to the one in the weekly at least for now, and then we'll bring that all over. If it ends up being somewhere else, we'll bring it all over for the planning next time. All right. So I had two other smaller topics on here. The things I was gonna clarify us our position on certain things, like what do we actually, where we stand on these. So first is multi-cluster support for SFDM, basically multi-clusters in the same host. And I mean, my first bullet point in there, does it work? I think it does. I don't remember how you have to set it up or everything, but I'm pretty sure it does. I guess the more important question is the second one, which is if people do that, like what are the actual criteria that we follow as far as separating the clusters and differentiating them properly that we have to keep track of? Because I know sometimes things will come up, we'll say like, oh, you can't do that because it would break multi-cluster support. But we don't really ever have a clear defined thing of like what does that mean? Like what is the things we have to keep track of to have multiple clusters in the same host? So I sort of just, I guess this is another conversation starter thing. I know for one thing that you need to have different font files, different FSIDs. Also means a different the data there. But off the top of my head, those are the two big things I know you're going to have different runs of. I'm not sure if anyone has any other ideas on what thing I might be missing, something that's important, what's going on there. So I'll start off by just opening up as anything they remember or whatever about how this works.
Just to understand how it works right now, when we have multiple clusters, do we have different daemons for each cluster, or the same daemons, like the most important ones, the manager and monitor, are giving service to all of them?
They would be separate. It would be a totally different, like totally separate cluster, sort of with their own managers and monitors.
So we have different daemons for each one of them.
Yeah, daemons aren't shared, as far as I know.
Mhm.
So
So
I kind of like the
physically,
oh, go ahead.
no, just I would say that physically they are totally separated, even if they are running the same host.
They're just on the same host. Everything else about them, I think, is separate.
Yeah,
So,
they're
sorry,
totally
Mike.
separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're totally separate Ceph clusters that have no knowledge of each other,
Mhm.
just co-located. Which I personally think is kind of a neat idea because, I mean, supposedly, I guess if you're hyper-converged, maybe you would want to do something like this, perhaps. It's an interesting idea. But from recollection, what I remember, we tried really, really hard to keep everything under the etc directory. So like etc-ceph.conf and the keyring, and place most of those under the data dir. So they were denoted by the FSID. And so this would be var lib ceph FSID is one cluster, and then var lib ceph, a different FSID, is the other cluster. We kind of broke that when we started trying to manage etc-ceph.conf.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was kind of worried about because it makes sense with the different FSIDs that it would all handle itself. As long as I think there's a couple of cases. Like I remember this happening with inferring conf, that it would try to infer config files from other clusters, other monitors, or monitors in other clusters. So there were some gaps there. but it made sense. But as soon as you talk about scceph, ceph.conf, I know you can pass in when you do Bootstrap like a certain directory where you want to put those files and all that, like the client or the config and the keyring. But I don't know if we respect that properly, like later on, or what we do there.
Yeah, we had the discussion in the past week because of some bugs we had. And I remember we had plans like to create a conf directory per cluster to put the configuration there.
Yeah, I really remember what you're talking about. Yeah, we wanted to have. I think we agreed on putting it in both spots or something, so we could try to infer from the varlib ceph fsid.
Yeah.
But I think we had to leave it in scceph. For some reason, I don't remember exactly why. There was a
For
good
backward
reason.
compatibility, maybe we first.
It was something like that. If we couldn't
Yeah.
change it.
But
I think the other
Yeah, go
trouble
ahead.
is when you put the Ceph binaries on the host system itself, they by default want to look in that path. I don't know we want to rearrange all that.
The host binaries. Do you mean the Ceph binaries themselves?
Yeah, the Ceph binaries themselves. And I think a lot of the Ceph ADM commands look there likewise. And mirror the same behavior.
Repeat what you said, Mike. I don't know. I'm getting some audio issues. What'd you say about the
Sorry.
binaries?
I think some of the trouble is when you try and attempt to install like Ceph common or the Ceph binary on the host system, it wants to look in etcceph for those config files and key rings and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's one
so
of the
people still do
challenges.
that, I guess. Yeah, even though you have the container
Are,
options now.
yeah. Are we supposed to continue supporting these RPM packages, or now since we have everything containers, just can ask people to move to the new
I think that was
containers?
the intent of the Ceph ADM shell command. Use that, but it's sometimes cumbersome.
Yeah, I know some people still do it. I know downstream QE people I've seen, they'll still have Ceph common installed.
RPMs, yeah. Especially with
They
this
only have one cluster.
version issues.
Yeah, that came up again there. Yeah, with the Ceph dash version versus Ceph version were different
Yeah,
results.
yeah, exactly.
And I do think we also have a few struggles around like where we try and infer the config in Ceph ADM. I believe it's doing similar behaviors.
I was mentioning that earlier. I think the couple pull requests I put in about that should fix it. I think it now checks that the FSID matches for the monitors that you're inferring from. Hopefully that one works. Yeah, I don't know if there's anywhere else. Again, I'm more worried about the config file in general. Like if we're just expecting, because I think the Etsy Ceph, so ceph.conf is hard coded in a bunch of spots in the binary.
Right. Yeah.
So I think we wanted to properly support everything. We'd have to fix that. We have to have a way to provide a general argument almost. They say the argument for where to do all the conf stuff that you allow in Bootstrap would have to be sort of generic. We have to somehow pass it from the manager module and keep track of it and everything.
I mean, one of the things we might be able to do is just do like, say, Etsy ceph-fsid.com. And maybe the first instance or the last instance is a symlink to one of them. And so if you don't specify, you just kind of get either the first cluster or the last cluster via the symlink. That might work.
So would Etsy ceph.conf be a symlink to the Etsy ceph-fsid.conf?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you always have a default conf that points at one of the clusters, but I don't know, maybe that's more confusing. Maybe people will do the wrong thing.
Yeah, the only problem, I guess, is if someone tries to edit Etsy ceph.conf themselves, but it's kind of hard to deal with that, I guess. At least a symlink would handle all the automation, and all the single cluster stuff should not break. Again, a lot of people aren't manually modifying it. And it would split them up for the multiple clusters. And we know the FSID, so we know which one to reference as well. We could fix all those hard-coded spots.
In a way, the binaries internally, I mean, in the container, they will use etc ceph.conf. This is only for Ceph ADM.
Inside the containers, a lot of places where we're actually hard coding the etc/ceph.conf is actually in the mounts we do on the containers. There'll be spots where like they need a config file themselves, and we'll just hard code mount etc/ceph.conf and then put it wherever in the container that they need it. If you had multiple clusters and this cluster was not the one that was the one named Ceph, the default one, then it would just get some random other clusters config mounted in. I know NFS works like that. I think iSCSI also works like that. Top of my head.
Mhm.
So as long as we know which one to mount, it would be fine. Which even I guess that thing we talked about before, where we just had etc/ceph.conf, and then we also put a copy into the varlib ceph fsid. If we just always use that one, we could even maybe work for the thing where we try to keep track of it for people. I forget what we call that. Where we like write the etc/ceph.conf to all the admin nodes and all that, our handling of it. Because if we put it in there, we know where it is and not where it is. Know where it is, and we know it's like connected to the right cluster and everything. And then we still have the default etc/ceph.conf for the sort of default cluster. It can just still be there. Then all of our internal handling of it could be done using the FSID one. And maybe get it to work like that.
Anyway, right now, when you install multiple clusters in the same host, the first one, you have nothing. You just install it in etc ceph.conf. But the next one will overwrite the ceph.conf with the new FSID.
It actually blocks unless you put a certain flag. If it sees something in there at ceph.conf, it'll just stop the bootstrap. It'll tell you there's already one there.
So you have to provide the override flag.
Unless you say that. Or what you're supposed to do, if you actually want to put a second cluster in, is you're supposed to give us a different location to put the config file. The only thing with that is then I think what we're talking about, sort of the issue is that we then don't know where that is later. Like we don't actually keep track of that anywhere. We're saying what we did on Bootstrap is we put it in whatever location, so either the default etc/ceph or whatever directory they told us to put it in. And then we also always put a copy in varlib ceph fsid, like the data dir. And then we'd always, at least for our internal usage, we'd always have one. We wouldn't have to worry about it. What's in ceph.conf. That would be almost irrelevant to us at that point.
Yeah, I think if we always save the configuration for the cluster varlib fsid conf whatever directory we choose, we put it there and we change Ceph-ADM to always first look in this directory, and if it doesn't find there, then it fall back and continue to what we already have. So this way, at least we start having the configuration there, and the worst case, we just fall back to what we already have. So it shouldn't break anything.
Yeah, I think it could be. This is probably the same solution we came up with earlier, but it's just, yeah, we're just kind of coming back to it. I guess we never got around to implementing it. I don't know if we have a tracker for that actually.
We don't have, as far as I know, because
I guess we'll have to make a tracker to keep track of that one. But yeah, having it in both places and then favoring the FSID one.
I can create a new tracker for it.
Right.
Start working on it whenever I have time.
Yeah, because then that would make our multi-cluster support a lot simpler. Because even though ceph.conf exists, we're not actually using it internally.
Yeah.
There's some reason for it.
First, we look for the FSID, the specific one. If we don't find it, we just do what we are already doing. So this way, if it's new, Ceph-ADM just has already created the configuration. That's good. If it's an old one, it will just work as it worked before.
All right. Yeah. So I guess we've just ended up in the same solution as last time. It might be a good thing.
I will create the tracker, so at least to have it, and they will start working on it whenever I have some time.
All right. So is everyone okay with that solution, though? Maybe it's just the same solution we agreed on last time. I just kind of forgot about it. So the topic came up again, so this time we'll make a proper tracker and more on top of it. All right. And the last topic is similar. This is for clusters with different names. You don't have to have multiple clusters to do this. You would just have one cluster and have a certain name. This is, I don't actually know for sure and if we support this properly, like at all. But I was looking at something downstream related to this and whether it works properly. Specifically, I was looking at this adoption stuff. So that's that one link, the third link down, or the third bullet point. Yeah, under the cluster different names in the other pad. So at least when we do an adoption, we do allow you to specify the cluster name. But I think right now it doesn't properly work. Like you can't adopt something, or maybe it's only in certain cases you can't adopt something that's in a different name. I was really wondering if anyone actually knew or knows if we actually properly support different names, or if that's something that we don't really think about too much, or if that's specifically not supported, or what. Because I actually couldn't find anything in my brief search about that.
I think that was the intent, but from vague memory, I don't think I've ever seen us test this with anything but like Ceph dash is the name. Because I think it has, I think it's the systemd unit files and some of the conf directories are named this way. Like Ceph dash something. It was like daemon ID, Ceph dash, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not, these are like Nautilus-based clusters or earlier, and I'm not exactly certain how one might deploy using a different name. And I've never tried that. I don't think we've tested it.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is actually because the OpenStack team, they use different names for their clusters sometimes, and they were trying to do some adoption stuff to get it all working. With Cephidium, they were having a couple of issues. I wasn't sure if there was some effort in the past to support this or whatever, but it doesn't seem like it works properly right now, at least with the systemd files and everything. They're just kind of always Ceph. We might just need to do some work there. Either that or when we adopt the cluster. I don't know if you can change the name. I don't think you can change the name of Ceph when you adopt the cluster, or adopt the daemons.
And I think the biggest part of our testing, if you look, there's the adoption corpus GitHub or Git repo. We test through the, is it the unit, Cephidium unit test thing. So there's those little tarballs in there, and those kind of define, I think, what we've actually validated as far as systemd units and file path locations. So if we do find some bug, we probably ought to add a corpus for it. Just fix it.
I haven't looked at that repo in a super long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to go back and look at that one. See what we're actually testing there.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that's the known space of what we've actually confirmed works with adoption.
By the way, talking about this Ceph configuration, I see you in the code that also Podman authentication is also stored on that /etc/Ceph. Do we normally have the same registries in case of multi-clusters, or it could be different, like with different cluster?
I mean, you'd expect it to be the same one, but I think it wouldn't have to be, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could have two clusters using different registries for the images, but again, I don't know why you would.
Yeah.
But
probably, for example, if you want to test an upgrade and you have multiple clusters.
Yeah.
I think, some use case.
I guess you have to upgrade from an image on one registry to an image on another. Change all that login stuff. I guess we could put that in varlib Ceph as well. I don't think there's anything stopping us from backwards compatibility or some other components of Ceph to put it in varlib Ceph. That's something that we made entirely ourselves. We just have to worry about migrating our past clusters that have that So it'd be a bit easier. There'd be a little bit less to worry about than the conf file. But we can also move that. Yeah, but it sounds like we know what we're going to do for multiple clusters, but I guess for naming, we have to still go. I'll have to look back at the adoption corpus and figure out what we support there. I just need some investigation. I don't think anybody knows for sure what it does and doesn't work in that area. That'll be a thing I'll look at over the next week or two.
Yeah.
All right, so that was it for topics and everything. It's been a pretty long time. Does anyone have any other topics you want to bring up here?
From my side.
Right. Yeah, sorry about the laptop difficulties I'm having today. Yeah, I guess that's everything. So we can end here, and we'll see you all next week in the reef planning. So,
Great.
bye.
Thank you. See you.
Like
Bye.